Hello guys, welcome to Recap God, where we summarize movies in less than 10 minutes. Grab a drink or snack and enjoy. The movie starts with a Portuguese Jesuit priest named Ferreira who witnesses the torture of Japanese converts whom he has been trying to bring to the Christian faith. Ferreira narrates that the governor of Japan took 4 friars and a Japanese Jesuit tons in where they got mistreated with dripping ladles of hot water. The samurai forces them to abandon their faith, but the 5 priests refused and asked for more punishment to prove their belief in Christianity. A few years later, at St. Paul's College in Macau, an Italian Jesuit priest, Father Valignano, tells Ferreira, his Portuguese students, Rodriguez and Guru, that he has received a letter from Ferreira saying that he has renounced the Christian faith and lives as a Japanese now. The students do not believe the news and convince Father Valignano to permit them to go on a mission to find Ferreira. Valignano, believing that the students have got the spirit from God, allows them but says that they will be the last Jesuit priests who are allowed for the mission as there is a great danger in Japan. He tells them that a large number of people are being executed there and a few people practice Christianity secretly for the sake of their safety. Father Valignano's trusted man Mr. Chung takes Rodriguez and group to a man named Chitijiro, a Japanese Christian who fled from Japan to save his life. However, Rodriguez and group do not believe him to be a Christian and reluctantly enter Japan with his help. There in a cave, Rodriguez and Guru meet a man named Ichijo who assures them that he is a Christian and says that they have arrived in Tomoki village. The priests encounter a lot of other Christian Tomoki villagers and reach Ichijo's home where the family serves them food. Rodriguez and group learn that the villagers are practicing Christianity secretly and they do not go to the other villages as the Japanese government has spread inquisitors for Christians. One of the Tomoki villagers, Mochiko, tells them that even the common people cannot be trusted as they reveal Christians for the sake of rewards the government has promised. The priests are impressed with their strong faith and the hardships they face to protect their religion. Rodriguez and group help people and listen to their confessions and conduct prayers the whole night. The next day, Ichijo takes them to a hut where the priests will live secretly. He shows them a secret place in the hut for hiding themselves in case they hear someone knock at their door other than Ichijo. One night, a couple of people from Goto village come to meet them, saying that Kichijo has told them about the 2 priests. They reveal that Kichijiro is a Christian who fled when his family was put to death in Japan and he was released because of renounced Christianity. The Goto villagers persuade the priests to visit their village as many people need their help. However, Ichijo and Mochiko are reluctant to allow them, so they let only Rodriguez go to that village. When Rodriguez arrives at the village, he conducts prayers and hears the confessions of the villagers. Many repudiated also come to meet them secretly through the mountains. Rodriguez is glad when one of the villagers reveals that he had heard about Father Ferreira who baptized infants in Hamachi. Before the persecution, he tells Rodriguez that Umochi is near Nagasaki, but it is very dangerous for Christians. Rodriguez narrates that he baptized more than 100 adults and children and also heard confessions, and Goto he gives them cross signs and notices that the people are so greedy for the signs of faith and the faith itself. He distributes the beads of rosemary to the villagers, including Kichijiro, who reveals that he doesn't deserve it as he had denied God to save his life. But his family did not surrender and so they were put to death. Rodriguez listens to his confession and renews his faith. He narrates that Kichijiro's renewal of faith made Rodriguez feel that his life was valuable. After that, Mochiko takes Rodriguez back to the Tomoki village, telling him that the Inquisitor has arrested Ichijo. In the next scene, we see that the Inquisitor visits the village and says that he has been informed that the villagers are sheltering Christian priests. He releases Ichijo and says that he will return and take 3 prisoners from the village along with Ichijo. Later that day, Mochiko and Ichijo force the priests to stay as the Inquisitor will mistreat the villagers and find out that they are Christians. The next day, Rodriguez commands Mochiko and others to renounce their faith to save their lives. The 4 prisoners do as they are commanded by the priests, but the Inquisitor believes that he has been deceived, so he asks them to spit on the Holy Cross. Each his own. Mochiko don't surrender and reveal their fate. However, Kichiro spits on the cross and escapes. The 3 prisoners are then strapped to the wooden crosses by the ocean shore as all the villagers gather to watch them. Rodriguez narrates that they were given vinegar just as the Roman soldier gave to the dying Christ. Eventually, the prisoners are drowned by the tide and then cremated by the Japanese officials' guards. After that, Rodriguez narrates that the officials started searching for the priests in the mountains, so he and Guru parted their ways. Group leaves for Horde Island to continue the mission, believing that the priest's presence has been fatal for the villagers. Rodriguez returns to the Goto village, the last place Ferreira lived, and finds a destroyed wandering around Goto. He reunites with Kichijiro and betrays him into the hands of the samurai. Rodriguez meets a few Japanese Christian prisoners. One of the prisoners, Monica, says that she is glad to die for Christ as God has promised paradise for the ones who sacrifice their lives for him. Later, Rodriguez is taken to a hut where a man who acts as an interpreter tells him that the Christian faith has no value in Japan and that the other Christian prisoners will not be released until Rodriguez renounces his faith. He also tells him that Father Ferreira has renounced his faith and he is a Japanese priest now. However, Rodriguez doesn't trust him, but the interpreter tells him that he will see for himself. In the next scene, Rodriguez is taken to Nagasaki where he is imprisoned with Japanese converts. At a tribunal, the interpreter, along with the inquisitor and his men, tells Rodriguez that the Christian faith can only be valuable in Spain and Portugal but not in Japan. However, Rodriguez explains the truth of his religion and demands to meet the inquisitor. You know, a Musashi, who he learns is the old man seated before him in charge of the proceedings. Kichijiro reveals himself to be a Christian and joins Rodriguez in the prison where he explains that the Japanese officials forced him to betray Rodriguez. He then asks to be absolved of his betrayal through a confession which Rodriguez grants him reluctantly. The next day, the Japanese converts are forced to stamp on the picture of Christ but none of them do it. Kichijiro does as he is commanded and is released. The samurai beheads one of the prisoners who is Monika's husband, as an example for those who denied renouncing their faith. Rodriguez hides a crudely made crucifix in his dress before he is taken to the shoreline to await someone. After some time, he witnesses from afar that group and 4 other prisoners are approaching the shoreline under a Japanese guard. The interpreter tells Rodriguez the group has been informed of his apostasy. Rodriguez is held by the guards as he watches the former prisoners being taken in a small boat and then drowned one by one in the ocean to make group renounce his faith. Desperate group doesn't surrender and rushes to save them but loses his life eventually. In the next scene, Rodriguez eventually meets with Ferreira in a Japanese temple. He reveals to Rodriguez that he renounced his faith because of the cruelty he suffered. The interpreter tells him that forever his Japanese name is Soon-o Chuan, and he writes books on astronomy, medicine and the fallacies of Christianity. Ferreira says that he has spent 15 years in Japan and a year in the temple and he concludes that Christianity is futile in that country. He now believes that the converts do not sacrifice their lives for Christ but for the sake of Christian priests. Rodriguez insists that he has seen the converts relying on Christ and sacrificing their lives in his name, but Ferreira shows disbelief through a flashback. We see that Ferreira is hanging upside down on a pit with an incision behind his ear to drip the blood so that he may die gradually. Ferreira tells Rodriguez that he now believes that Christianity is not a true religion as God's Son can never be a human, rather it is the sun who rises every day. Rodriguez calls him a disgrace to Christianity. Ferreira reveals that he now has a wife and children which he inherited from an executed man and then leaves the temple. That night in his prison cell, Rodriguez hears the screams of 5 Christians being punished. Ferreira comes into his cell and tells him that God is not there. Therefore, Rodriguez needs to save the prisoners from the pain by apostatizing rather than just praying, which is useless. Rodriguez goes outside and urges the prisoners to apostatize, but he learns from Ferreira that those prisoners have already apostatized, but it is Rodriguez's apostasy that the Japanese governor demands. After that, Rodriguez hears the voice of Jesus who gives him the permission to apostatize, and so the prisoners are released. In the next scene, a named Dieter Albrecht narrates that Soon-o Chuan and Rodriguez's expertise is occasionally used to prevent Dutch traders from bringing Christian influences to Japan. Despite every attempt, a few things were inevitably smuggled in. Rodriguez finds a crucifix and the Dutch trader gets arrested for it. After that, Dieter narrates that Solano died a few years later, and the final rites are done according to the Japanese religion. Next, we see that the Inquisitor tells Rodriguez that he will take the name of a man known as Okada, Santa Men, who died in Edo and also adopt his wife and children died. Her narrates that he visited Edo 10 years later, where Cinnamon gives the oath of his renunciation of faith repeatedly. Kichijiro asks Cinnamon to absolve him again, but he refuses, saying that he is no longer a Christian. Just then Send Them and hears the voice of Jesus assuring him that rather than remaining silent, he was always there alongside the ones who are treated badly. Later, the Japanese official visits to make them renounce the Christian faith, and Kichijiro was caught for having the picture of Christ in his amulet, which he tells that he wanted while gambling and wasn't aware of the picture, but Japanese guards take him away. Dieter narrates that during his last voyage in 1682, he asked about sending him on and the Japanese told him that the last Christian priest never prayed or spoke of God. Then we are shown that Sandeman's wife is allowed to watch his coffin, where he places Memoria Gaetana to ward off the evil spirits, and then the coffin is taken by the Japanese guard for cremation. In the final scene, a crudely made crucifix is shown in the hand of Rodriguez, revealing that he never abandoned his religion and practiced it secretly, including his wife and children, and the movie ends here. Thanks for watching, guys.